On my left hand, you'll see a glove that cost about $30 US. On my right, about $90 US. But what's the real cost of saving money on something like gloves? This is better than a bare hand. I know because I've crashed with a bare hand, and we'll get back to that. Is this at 3 times the price, 3 times better a glove? What's the cost of a possible ambulance ride and surgery? More than $60. And then you have to consider yourself downtime from work if you need your hands for work, which obviously being a motorcycle YouTuber and a mechanic, it's a pretty big deal if I lose either of my hands for even a few days. For some of you out there, saying a $90 pair of gloves compared to some high-end Dainese gloves, this is still not high-end. You'd say this is mid-range and this is budget. Just spending more does not exclusively make more money. And one thing we'll allude to at the end, you have to buy what's in your budget. Now, before we get into the fine nitty-gritty, this video is sponsored by me. I paid for everything with my own money. That said, there are affiliate links in the description that cost you nothing extra, but do help me and the channel stay afloat. So if you want my kids to eat dinner this month, please consider clicking those links if you're gonna buy these gloves. But with that, let's get into similarities. So obviously, these are both black and leather gloves. They both have hard parts on the knuckles and the joints, and they both have sliders. Here's my smartphone touchscreen. This is a nearly 2-year-old glove. This I just opened. So will the touchscreen work in 6 months? I don't know. 2 years later? Absolutely. Now let's talk about the differences. This one from ILM is perforated, RS Taichi is not. Now for the exact same price, you can get a non-perforated version of this ILM, and you can, for slightly less, get a slightly more mesh and perforated version of this RS Taichi glove. And I'll link a version of the mesh glove because maybe that's what you're looking for. So the first point that I definitely have to give to ILM, it is completely leather. Between the fingers, around the hand, everything is goat skin leather. Whereas RS Taichi, there is a little bit of fabric, but I don't think it's fabric in a place that's gonna matter. The only reason I give so many points to a fully leather glove, I've recently slid down the pavement at about 80 kilometers an hour. The leather parts held up great, and the non-leather parts inspired me to buy new gloves. Even when I'm going off-roading, there's a lot of pavement between the trails. I'd rather be slightly sweaty off-road in this and slide better when we're getting to the trails. If you've got money, get the nice leather glove for the street and carry an MX glove for the dirt and just change your gloves 6 times throughout the day. So if you look right here on the knuckles, you have 2 layers of leather on the RS Taichi. You don't on the ILM. Multiple layers on the back of the hand, multiple layers here, and all the important impact zones are double layered. You also have cowhide through a lot of it. So to say leather and leather, that's not 100% the same thing. The next part we have to look at is the plastic versus carbon parts. What's most common is TPU, which neither of these have. You have carbon on one hand, which in my opinion always looks better, but as you can see here with the little white appearing, carbon can be harder to make, especially cheap, and it's more fragile. It slides much better, it doesn't have too much flex, but when it slides, usually it'll shatter and you get one slide out of the crash. This is not TPU, this is PVC. And this is PVC, and all these joints are PVC. There's also TPR in the knuckles here, which is relatively durable, a bit rubbery, and it gets multiple bounces per crash. So if your hand just bounce, 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 you should not have destroyed it in the first impact. PVC can be somewhat flexible. It's essentially the cheapest choice. So there's the first obvious saving. You get 2 sliders on the wrist, and this is the cheapest possible material under the leather, which arguably does look better for some people, depends on the style you're going for. This is not a fashion video. What's under the glove? So now I'm gonna take the gloves off so I can show you. You've probably seen a million times a video suggesting that you need sliders on your palms. It's not just the slider. So here is the PVC, and pinching it, I can tell you it's just the PVC. There is no padding under it. So when you hit the road, yes, you'll slide, but you are sending the impact straight into the bone. This has a thick race-approved padding, Now let's flip it over to the other side where first off, there's nothing on the thumb. Each joint on the thumb has padding behind TPR, every finger padding behind TPR. This is the PVC, and if I put my hand all the way through to try to pinch it, very, very minimal and extremely soft padding, but it's something. And same on the knuckles. Compared to this knuckle, and remember this is a 2-year-old glove, there's still at least twice as much padding to feel behind this glove versus this glove. Because one other point to say here's a price difference is certification. It's expensive to get something like a CE certification. So some things I've seen that don't have the ratings that you're looking for if you trust the brand. For example, Climb has some riding pants that are based on CEAA riding pants, but because they don't have armor, you can't get a CE slide rating because European bureaucracy is brilliant. A brand that's very cheap that I've never heard of, it's hard for me to just trust that they know what they're doing. Whereas this one is famous originally for making race gear, and this does meet the standard to get on some racetracks in Japan. And whatever I do on the street will never meet up with the standards needed for even the slowest racetracks in Japan. And on an unrelated note, 3 Tokyo police officers subscribe to my channel. Don't overthink it. But getting a CE rating is expensive. This does have a safety standard for Japan, but not a CE rating as far as anywhere I could find. This has no safety rating, full stop. And with that, let's talk about the thread. If you look at, for example, riding wear pants and shirts, there's CEA, A, AA, and AAA. Part of the testing that a lot of people don't know about is about the thread. No matter how durable your leather is, typically if it was a healthy animal and well-treated leather, leather is leather. Will the stitches burst? And some gloves I've had have ripped after just a few weeks of wearing. If you want to see what I'm talking about, here's a pair of gloves that I bought recently, but on those specific gloves, saving money actually cost me money. I'll link that video in the description. But to go back to talking about the thread of these, they don't say what is the thread made of on the tags or the websites. I'm not going to pull it apart and test the threads, but you could say it's possible, and definitely true with some brands, though not necessarily these two, maybe the more expensive glove is high tensile nylon thread that goes into race suits. Being a race brand, very maybe. And then the budget brand, is it using dollar store polyester that you can rip apart in your fingers? You'll never know until the glove bursts apart as you impact the road. Next, let's talk about fit and finish. I must say, specifically the pair that's in my hand, your mileage may vary, but this glove doesn't feel poorly made as far as the stitching. It's got accordion stretch in all the right places. For the price, the fit and finish seems fine. The right and the left hand, I've measured my hands and they're the same. You can see the pinkies are not identical lengths and my fingers don't sit in exactly the same spots. It's only a few millimeters, but there is a difference. The RS Taichis, not only do they fit my hand perfectly, and there's an asterisk there, my hand, because not all hands are the same, but the RS Taichi is hands down, pun intended, the best fitting glove I have ever worn ever. It is one of the few glove brands that I can say I'll order it online when there's a discount and just get large and be 100% sure that it's going to be a perfect fit. And that brings us into the next point, longevity. Again, I can only conjecture, but I can say cheap budgety gloves I've had before, that one that didn't last a month, this seems almost brand new for 2 years of riding. So maybe this will last. I've seen some videos where people are happy with them daily commuting after a year. But points of failure, and some reviews did say, the Velcro here doesn't last forever for some of the reviews. Those are older reviews, so I don't know if ILM has updated the Velcro. It doesn't seem like bad Velcro, not nearly as bad as the Komine gloves I've had. There's a piece of plastic that may not show up on camera that's just flicking right here. I don't know what that is, but that makes me wonder what's in here, what might fall apart. And again, the stitching. Whereas this one, it's holding up great. The Velcro shows no signs of any possible issues. It's much easier to use. And here's a big TPR point that's multiple spots to hold on. I have no reason to think this is going to wear out anytime soon. Now, the hardest thing to suggest different between the two gloves, how much R&D did they do? If you have to pay someone to do R&D in Bangladesh or someone to do R&D in the USA, it's going to cost more for the R&D in the USA. Is the R&D some dude who says, I think I know what I'm doing, or someone with several master's degrees? This is from Osaka, so this is a Japanese cost of R&D. This is a California-based company, so there's definitely some cost of R&D. Now, I am not saying this specific glove, and just generally speaking, knockoff gloves will often skip the R&D by just copying and pasting what they stole from other companies. You all know that, but saving money on R&D could be a point where they didn't test. They didn't get the perfect fit and finish. They didn't measure hands to a painstaking level to get the best glove I have ever worn. So there's another point where you're paying for the the extra $60 in R&D. I'm not saying they didn't do a good R&D. I am saying they did do a great R&D. So beyond just gloves, when we keep trying to buy the things that are the cheap knockoffs instead of paying for the quality product that did all the R&D, then it's not profitable to create something new. And then you have to wonder, why over the last 20 years have premium goods gotten so much more expensive? Is it possibly they have to keep up with the knockoff competition because everyone buys the knockoff rather than rewarding them? So a smaller group of loyal customers have to pay a bigger burden of R&D? Who's to say? Here are the two things that are the hardest to say right here without doing a massive deep dive into the investigation. Can't say for sure about either glove, and I won't disparage either one. Potentially, here are the two biggest differences in cost: the address of the manufacturing facility and the quality of the materials. So is this a goat that was raised in the worst possible conditions and is therefore very low quality leather? Is this a goat that got massaged every day and treated like Wagyu beef up to the last day, where it died peacefully surrounded by its grandchildren and slowly but perfectly treated into the future? How did the tanneries work? Is this a high quality tannery of leather? Is there a reason you only get black? Is this a low quality? Who's to say either one? I wouldn't know how to find that information, especially on the budget of this channel. But the big one about the address of manufacturing, I can tell you both of these are made in China. So that kind of makes it seem equal, right? Well, no. I know someone in the manufacturing industry. Made in China is very much like the USA. If you put a California factory up against a Tennessee factory, the regulations protecting the Californians significant compared to Tennessee. And it's the same thing across China. Different factories have different regulations and different values in the workers. Is one glove made by adults making a living wage and the other making it by adults living in extreme poverty that can barely afford to feed their children? Even worse, is one made by adults and one made by children? Let's not sit here and tell ourselves there's no child labor left in the world. It happens all the time with fast fashion. They are caught frequently, and worse than that, because yes, it does get worse than child labor, slavery. Slavery is not gone in the world. Some countries had legal slavery till just 10 years ago. Now, we should assume that things aren't being made in North Korea, but we know that in parts of China, there's a lot of places where you can custom order your organ transplant dates. But I want to stop there because I know when I suggest things like child labor and slavery are bad things, a lot of you get offended because you feel entitled to your cheap Chinese knockoff goods with what about arguments, and you're very upset that I suggest human rights are important. That is up to you and whatever God you do or don't believe in. So in the end, I am going to give the points to RS Taichi for all the things listed in the video. Even though I would say RS Taichi, I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why maybe you should get the ILM. A lot of my viewers are from Western nations, so I'm going to remind you about the rest of the planet. The #1 best-selling vehicle in history by far is the Honda Cub. Most countries can't afford cars or space for the cars. So if the extra $60 towards this glove is 2 weeks of food for your entire family, don't get this glove. Feed your family, go towards something like this. But I will say, even for anyone at any budget, this is better than peeling all the skin off your hand. I should know. I have crashed at over 70 miles an hour in the USA without gloves, and I still have some issues in this hand where the pinky doesn't work the way it used to. There's not nearly as much muscle here as there is here. The scars have mostly faded, but this joint, right here and down here, completely skin-free for quite a while. If you can still see the fading on the skin right there. People that are just riding around with no gloves. Again, this is so much better than no gloves, even at a low speed crash. This could actually be much more cost-effective than nothing. And the last person is the new rider who's still trying to figure out what kind of riding they want to do. This is a glove that fits into most backgrounds on a base level to learn what you're doing. And again, is better than nothing and doesn't break the bank. So if you're a new rider and that last $60 could go towards better boots or helmet, get the helmet. If you do any off-roading, get the boots. This is good enough. Boots, they're gonna get way more action. Helmets will save your life. They have saved mine. But that's another story for another time. So now that's where I'll go beyond saying gloves. With all kinds of riding gear, you get what you paid for. I could make the same video about helmets, pants, armor, riding shirts. You get what you paid for. Yes, there are some deals out there. For example, my Shinko 804 tires, a review is coming soon, but it's going to be a very positive review. But if you want to see me talk about where you get what you paid for with motorcycle kit, watch this video. But till then, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon, and remember to ride safe.